Okay.
So, Paul, do you remember last year? Last year
Last year. Yep.
uh, when
Okay.
when suddenly Russia invaded Ukraine,
Okay. Yeah.
and you
Yes.
you told me you excitedly told me that about what is Crimea, what Russian military is doing, and I was like, whoa, really? And I think we make the prediction that, I mean, on the same day we predict that um US will be the
Europe will be.
yeah, we predict that US will be the beneficiary, and Ukraine will not be the worst. Actually, Europe will be the worst,
Will
and
be the
Russia,
worst. Yes.
yeah, and China will be number two or number three in terms of the benefit. Basically, they will
Yeah.
capture whatever United States left behind, and
Mm.
Russia will have a hard-earned victory or a hard-earned losses, because for them is all in, yeah. So it's whether even they win is the hard-earned victory, but highly likely they will still get a hard-earned losses. So it was incredible that
Uh,
now it's like 1 year anniversary. So
Going to war. Wonderful. They really are finally going to war. I'm like, I wasn't thinking much lah. I was just focused on recovering that time. Then um, after that, right, it became apparent. Oh, okay. It became apparent when I finally like woke up from everything and finally realized what's going on. Oh, yes, Russia is Russia is finally, doing the right thing.
are you sure it's right?
Putin has balls.
Yeah,
No, I'm just saying Putin has balls.
yeah.
He's not thinking about it. He's not thinking about things in the short run. We're talking about 20, 30 years down the road lah. Okay.
Mm.
20, 30 years down the road. Because um if you look at the map, you just give me a while I'm searching for it, right?
Yep.
Just give me a mo. So we'll just continue talking. So if you look at it from from a certain map I sent to you lah, you notice that wow, how to say they are surrounded by NATO bases
Yeah,
all
yeah.
around.
I mean, I'm aware of that.
Yeah lah, of course lah, you're aware of that lah. But then it didn't make sense to me, because I've forgotten that the world is is a sphere lah. Yeah, I've forgotten that the world is a sphere. So when I look at it over, when I didn't look at it overlook it, right? I keep thinking of the the Mercator projection, the what Mercator projection, as in like the normal map, right?
Yep.
The normal map where we keep seeing it in the in the flat 3D.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's the
Oh,
Mercator projection.
yeah. I mean, the normal projection is that uh, Europe is at the center of the Earth, and China is at the east, and then the American is at the west, and Russia is at the top.
Yeah lah. But
Mm.
then of course it will definitely inflate the size of the, uh what's it
Rush,
called?
northern and the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, correct. Because it will definitely like, inflate the size. Okay. Whether you like it, whether you're on the side of the West or you're on the side of Russia, right? You have to respect the fact that, right, he did what a leader had to do, you know. I as a leader, right, I look at, US not listening to me. They're getting closer and closer and closer. They're not even, looking at it from a stability point of view. So from my perspective, right, the war was started because of geopolitical reasons. Okay.
Yep,
It's
yeah, I
geopolitics.
can totally agree with that, because I remember the collapse of the Soviet Union, and in order for the Soviet Union to collapse, because there's actually agreement, without agreement, the Soviet Union will rather destroy the world than collapsing. So I remember they have a peace treaty or certain other agreement with the NATO, and
Mm.
that time, right? I mean, I remember Poland, like even Czech Republic, most of the Eastern European country by today's dictionary is actually all under Soviet Union. And for the past
Yes.
30 years, those called neutral country are no longer neutral. So not only that they join European Union and they are joining NATO step by step, country by country. And after 30 years or 40 years of turning into the NATO, so in a way, it's breaching. I mean, you can say that, oh, it's already 30, 40 years, so Soviet Union's already collapsed, so they don't have to be neutral anymore. But not from the perspective of Russia, to be fair, because if this country, especially Ukraine, because Ukraine is the last country. If you ask me, any country can join European Union. Any countries, Eastern European country can join European Union except Ukraine, because if Ukraine do that, there is no more peace. There's going to be World War III, and I don't know why Ukraine president is doing that, because if you're looking at the history, right? Because without history, there won't be Russia. There won't be collapse of Soviet Union, because I think Soviet Union has the best technology to destroy the world, actually better than Russia. And who is the traitor of the Soviet Union? Actually, I would say Ukraine. So Ukraine also like surrender a lot of weaponaries and a lot of Hollywood movie, right? I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know whether you remember the name. There's a few like Hollywood movie about how the Americans fly to Ukraine to sell the bullets from the Ukraine or the machinery and support the
Oh,
Middle East war.
okay.
There's actually quite a few movie about.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Actually, one of the movie, actually a while back I already mentioned to you, is called War Dogs. What they do is they buy how to say War Dogs is like a modern day whereby they buy the bullet from from what are former Soviet countries, and then they ship it to Afghanistan. There's also another one whereby it's called Lord of War by Nicolas Cage. The actor is Nicolas Cage, whereby he is how to say an arms dealer. It's just a story about an arms dealer where he was there during the fall of the Soviet Union. So
Cool, cool.
he, he so he happened to his uncle happened to be a general in Ukraine. So during the collapse of the Soviet Union, he just like, bought all his entire stockpile.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you
So
talk
if you're
about War
asking
Dogs,
about
right?
the movie sources, those two lah.
War Dogs, right? War Dogs and lots of wars. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So pretty
Lord of
cool.
War.
Yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, but I'm just saying that imagine that you talk about you know the collapse of the Soviet Union, like the end of the Cold War, right? They talk about freedom, democracy, socialism, capitalism, whatever. But the saddest thing is the capitalist country, right? Actually have to steal the poor from the poor countries, because the American doesn't sell their own bullet. They did not sell their own weapons. They went to Ukraine and sold all of them. And then the problem about the people of Ukraine is like they say they are people of peace, right? And then
Uh-huh.
they want to sell everything for very cheap. Like, I mean, not even worth the material price. It's like
Mm.
maybe the material of the bullet, not even including the add-on service, the manufacturing cost, the storage cost. They can't even break even of any single thing, even the rental. I don't think the price that they bought the weapons. And imagine that the like when United States is invading like Afghanistan and Ukraine. I'm sorry, invading Afghanistan and other Middle East country. They don't even buy the weapon from the US company. They outsource to the subcon, to the small supplier. And then the small supplier fly to Ukraine and exported the weapon. How's that was that for country of freedom or country of capitalism? Because you don't even make them. You talk about industrialization, but you are like a subcon, you know, like sub-supplier of the distributor of the rubbish or the abandoned inventory that is right off from the Ukraine government. So for me, it's I don't know what to comment. It's very sad. I'll leave it to you. I will leave it to you for the rest of the comment, because for me it's just sad.
From my perspective, I mean, from the Russian perspective, right? I can't speak for Russia, that's for sure. But if I'm looking at it from our perspective, right, from where I'm looking at, right, you know, Putin is doing the right thing, right, of, you know, starting this what we call war, or he likes to call it special operations. He used this exact word, special operations. He know that, right? You know, NATO has gone too far, like literally too far. So, you know, if I don't push back, right, you know, eventually, you know, they'll get the consensus of, technically the US already had the consensus of the Europeans. The only thing that the only puppet that Putin has is Belarus.
Yeah.
Whereby, because they must have all member states agree. So he has one guy in Belarus, the dictator by name Lukashenko. Unfortunately, now I cannot go to that country, as I was about to say it. He is blocking all the, you know, he's there to, you know, ensure that he blocks all unfavorable agreements, or to block every single agreement to make sure that there's a deadlock.
Yeah.
The writing's on the wall.
Well, in any event, we'll have to think of something to make the public think kindly towards administration because of the Europass.
Quite.
Europass? Europass?
European identity card. Well, Bernard, surely you've informed the Minister.
Minister, didn't you do your boxes last night?
No, I was redrafting the redraft of the draft.
Well, briefly, Minister, Brussels is about to decree that there should be a new European identity card to be carried by all citizens of the EEC. Now, the Foreign Office is quite ready to go along with it as a quid pro quo, for a deal over the Buttermount and the Wine Lake and the Milk Ocean. The Lamb War and the Cod Stink. And quite obviously, the Prime Minister wants you to introduce the legislation.
Me?
Yes, well, it's well known that you're pro-Europe, you see. And it would simplify our administration enormously in the long run, so it's a good idea, don't
Good
you
idea.
think?
Good idea? Good idea.
Not a good idea?
Political suicide? Trying to make British people carry compulsory identification papers? They'll say I'm introducing a police state again. Is this what we fought 2 world wars for, Humphrey?
Well, Minister, it's really little more than a sort of driving license.
It's the last nail in my coffin, that's what it is.
You might get away with calling it Euro Club Express.
Bernard,
Why do we have to introduce it? Can't the Foreign Office do it?
Well, in fact, that was the Prime Minister's original suggestion, but the Foreign Secretary thought that this was a Home Office matter, and the Home Office took the view that it was essentially an administrative matter, and the Prime Minister agreed.
They're all playing pass the parcel.
Can you blame them when you can hear it ticking?
Well, I'm afraid that the identity...
Why do we have to introduce it? Can't the Foreign Office do it?
Well, in fact, that was the Prime Minister's original suggestion, but the Foreign Secretary thought that this was a Home Office matter, and the Home Office took the view that it was essentially an administrative matter, and the Prime Minister agreed.
They're all playing pass the parcel.
Can you blame them when you can hear it ticking?
Well, I'm afraid that the identity card bill is planned to be the last action of this department.
Wonderful ammunition for the anti-Europeans.
Yes, don't the Foreign Office realise what damage this will do to the European idea?
Well, I'm sure they do. That's why they support it.
Well, surely the Foreign Office is pro-Europe, isn't it?
Yes and no. If you'll forgive the expression. The Foreign Office is pro-Europe because it is really anti-Europe. The civil service was united in its desire to make sure that the common market didn't work. That's why we went into it.
What are you talking about?
Minister, Britain has had the same foreign policy objective for at least the last 500 years, to create a disunited Europe. In that cause, we have fought with the Dutch against the Spanish, with the Germans against the French, with the French and Italians against the Germans, and with the French against the Germans and Italians. Divide and rule, you see. Why should we change now, when it's worked so well?
That's all. Ancient history, surely.
Yes, and current policy. We had to break the whole thing up, so we had to get inside. We tried to break it up from the outside, but that wouldn't work. Now that we're inside, we can make a complete pig's breakfast of the whole thing. Set the Germans against the French against the Italians against the Dutch. The Foreign Office is terribly pleased. It's just like old times.
Surely we're all committed to the European ideal.
Really, Minister?
If not, why are we pressing for an increase in the membership?
Well, for the same reason. It's just like the United Nations, in fact. The more members it has, the more arguments it can stir up, the more futile and impotent it becomes.
What appalling cynicism.
This TV show, right, it's called Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister lah. Is a 40-year-old TV show. I'm being serious.
Yep.
It's a 40-year-old TV show. So that with that video in mind, right, I'm sure that we already established why the EU, why certain countries are in the EU, and why Putin has what's his name Belarus in the European Union. It's so nothing can progress. If you look at who his possible successor, Putin's successor, who are they? Do we have any candidate that is able to be like Putin?
Well, I would say even there
I
is
cannot
they are
name any.
hiding. Yeah, we cannot, because even there is, right, they are hiding behind because they don't dare to show up in Putin's face. I mean,
Yeah.
they'll be hiding.
Yeah. So that's why he knows that maybe, right, in the next 20 years or maybe in the next 10 years, he may not be able to, he may not, I'm not saying that he's sick or anything, right? But maybe he may not have that opportunity or that chance, or maybe he may not be in health to see all the ambitions come true.
Well,
So
in
he launched the attack.
I think in that sense, I totally agree, because Putin should do that 10 years ago in Putin's point of view, because he trusted the West, right? But the West has betrayed the peace treaty between the Soviet Union and NATO. So because NATO are the one being aggressive. So, and if Putin has caused the World War III or whatever 10 years ago, it is definitely better than today. So I do agree that there's no reason for Putin to wait any longer, because first he's getting older and he should do it when he was even younger, when Russia has more power. Yep.
I don't know lah, from that perspective. I feel that at that time, right, he's still consolidating power. Chechnya was still, an insurgent. Chechnya, one of the, separatist, tried to be a separatist, but then he managed to get it under control during his, ministership lah, back in the days. But beyond that, right, the reason why, at the same time, from my perspective, right, at the start of the war, right, I feel that, right, Putin, right, purposely, release out all the, he's launching probing attacks. Means to say that he's not really sending his best troops. He's not even sending his best equipment. He's sending the worst equipment out first,
Well, makes sense. I
Why
think.
why
Mm.
at the start right, during usually Americans first strike policy, right? The first
Yep.
3 days, right? They call
Yep.
it the first strike, right?
Yep.
The first strike is always you know, it's always it's called what they like to call controlled chaos lah, whereby they strike all the important targets all within the first 3 days because the first 3 days is very critical. No, he decided to, send all the worst equipment out. Send out, he could have, sent his best equipment out at the first 3 days because you have the element of surprise. So that got me thinking, what if, right, he doesn't see, he wants to drag the war from the very beginning. He's toying with the Ukrainians. Because Russia have this weapon called the hypersonic missile. It's a missile that cannot be intercepted. Why didn't he just assassinate Zelensky at the beginning? And and just to create so much disarray. Why didn't he do that? But instead he decided to take the road of dragging the war out. Huh. That was
Yeah.
my thought process at the beginning. Then I realized, oh, he's doing it the old way. He's doing it the old way.
What's the
He
old way?
wants to plunge the whole of Europe lah. He wants to drag all of Europe lah. I'm talking about World War II back then lah.
Okay.
Whereby right, he wants to drag the whole of Europe involved into this conflict.
Possible.
And
Because
also, actually, this conflict
Yeah.
has been brewing for a long time. Even way before, the Ukraine war started, Russian-Ukraine war started, right? There's within the borders, right? They are fighting, mini skirmishes. It's not like a war, lah. It's like, there's firefight along the border. They keep firing at each other. But you don't forget, within the area, right?
Belarus.
You look at the red color.
Yeah.
The red color, right, is how to say it's all Russian speaking part of the Ukraine.
Yep.
And they're very, very close to, Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why at the beginning of the conflict, right, I say that I already forecasted that, right, Russia only needs to control the west side of the Ukraine. If they push further, right, they won't be able to, resupply. They won't be able to do any of that. They won't be able to progress further. Any extra progress they make, okay, great, it's bonus. But the reason why is because, right, in history, right, they are always the worst in logistics. Their supply can never resupply their front line in time. Always, they can never fix that mistake. Always. So right. When that happens, right, your war machine, right, will not progress any further than the west of Ukraine. But the west of Ukraine is already enough to make a point. You don't exactly need to, conquer all. You just need to slowly conquer. And so long as, right, at the beginning, I also got mentioned that, right, so long as you control the sea, right, the sea area, the moment you landlock Ukraine, right, supplies very hard to flow in and out. That's all that matters. Although there are nearby European countries, right?
Yes.
Okay, you already limited their export capabilities.
So you're saying that Russia's strategy is not to win the war, but to, like what you say, drag the European Union inside, and because they have to save Ukraine, right? Because Ukraine got into this because Ukraine want to join NATO and European Union, but by increasing the costs of the material importing costs and the exporting costs of the Ukraine. So they are costing European Union a bomb, something.
You know, it's more like, you know, you drag longer, right?
Yep.
If the Europeans do not help the Ukrainians, right, at that
Yep.
time, right, they thought that, oh, you know, Russia is an overwhelming force.
Yep.
So if they don't help Ukraine, right, eventually Russia will, you know, be too close to Europe, as in the
Yep.
European Unions and
Yep.
NATO bases.
Yeah, because
So that's why
I would say
they
the problem,
funnel.
but I would say the problem is there's not enough neutral state countries because no, I mean it's bullshit. I mean the reason why the peace treaty resulting in like 12 neutral state countries is because none of these country can join anywhere. I mean, imagine if Russia is winning, right? So Russia is
Yep.
winning, and then those neutral state join Russian. So the last country that will be next to the Russia or Soviet Union state country will be the West Germany. So the West Germany will be in the situation that it's like what the Ukraine is doing now. So the West Germany will say, "Oh, I would like to join the East Germany." Then whatever Putin is doing to Ukraine today, I think the French and the NATO or the UK is going to crush Germany by today's standard. So I mean, it's because there's not enough neutral state country, because based on the logic of NATO or the Russia, it is a deadlock. I mean, it's either win or lose, right? Because there's no argument. How to argue? Because like when
Yep.
Ukraine joined Russia, then other country will be saying, "Hey, Ukraine is joining Russia. Oh no, it's going to be war." So the problem is there's not enough neutral state countries. Yeah.
Just so you know, Russia, right, also has a small part of land, right, in Poland. It's called Kaliningrad. It's
Nice.
literally in Poland.
Okay.
Just so you know that the red dot over there on the left. Yeah. So where was I? Okay. It's more like, you know, if Europe do not help Ukraine, right,
Yep.
by materials they are funneling and the amount of money they're funneling, right? Wow. Actually, not the US, maybe you may think that the US is the number one beneficiary, but actually Ukraine is the number one beneficiary. Kanina, all the money, right, all go to them.
Well, I would say not real. I would say the Ukrainian president is the number one beneficiary, but not the Ukrainian, because the people will die.
Yeah, I know.
The country is okay, but the person who become a hero and get all the money, wealth, power, and no more election for Ukraine, because the next president will always be the same guy. Go back to the analogy about insurance. It's the same, you know. Do you know how much insurance company have to pay you if you die? Do you know that?
I don't know how much.
Maybe just 30,000 or 100,000. That's it.
US dollar.
I mean, based on the country that you buy the insurance
Okay.
policy. But imagine, right? Imagine that you are always in the ICU, but if you're always in the ICU, right? The medical supplier, the bed, the doctor, the surgeon, the medicine, everything is maximum. So maybe the money to save a dying patient, right? The cost is 3 million USD or maybe 30 million USD. All right. In order to save a patient from dying, they might need to spend 3 million or 30 million. But why? Why the person that die maybe only need to spend 100,000? Do you know why?
Because rob Peter pay Paul, I guess. As in, like, you know, you have scale, you have a lot of people, you take the other person's premium, and then you just pay the other guy lah.
Oh
Isn't that the
no, the logic is
oh
very
no?
simple. If you die, you went to coffin. So how much is the ceremony cost? It's only less than 100,000, because what they need to make sure, what the insurance company, actually a lot of company, when the insurance started was like that, because when you die, you need a coffin, and the coffin need to be sent to somewhere. That is the cost of the
Okay.
death for the insurance.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
Because
All right.
because when you die, you don't want to die in the hospital. You don't want to die on the road. You don't want to die on the street, because no one want to see dying people. They just want them to be invisible, to be get lost. So what they have to do is put them in the coffin and send them to the graveyard. But for the dying patient, is different. Imagine when you're dying, right? Your doctor, your surgeon, the hospital, the bed, the number of doctor, the budget is to the roof. So in order to save one person,
Mm, mm,
you might need 3 million or 30 million. So why the insurance company want to pay 30 million? When exactly the conspiracy theory that you're talking about, you're saying that Russia is not trying to kill Ukraine, because killing Ukraine, if they use the most advanced weapon, it will be fast and cheap. Why they want to make it expensive? Because a dying Ukraine will kill the insurance company, which is the European Union. So I just
okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah, I think you got my analogy, right? So
Yes.
so Russia is a smart doctor or smart enemy who want to earn the money from the insurance policy. So he created a dying Ukraine, but this Ukraine just won't die. So he can get unlimited amount of medical supplies just to make it costly. Because when a person is hopeless, right, you don't try to save them.
Yep.
What makes you feel like saving the person? It's that this guy always looks like hopeful, like the Ukrainian is like, whoa, we just fight, we can fight. So no matter how, maybe they lose a leg, they lose an arm, but they just like unite everyone and say, oh, we just fight. So, and this is the thing that the NATO want to see, right? So NATO will be like, will I support a person who have a fighting will or without a fighting spirit? So no matter how dead is a Ukrainian, as long as they look like hopeful, optimistic, and there's a good fighting spirit. So if this is what you're trying to say, maybe Putin is winning because he managed to trick the world. We thought that it's about World War III, but actually it is about a surgeon try to cheat the money from the insurance company. So there you go.